Welcome here, my dear friend. No matter what we discuss, it's always a pleasure to discuss it with you. Why do you think Donald Trump linked and accepted basically the same deal, as far as we can tell what it is, as the Iranians offered back in April?
I think there were a number of factors, but probably the driving element here was the fact that the United States is running out of oil storage. And that, combined with the impact of the delay in shipping out of the Strait of Hormuz, is going to produce a huge spike in oil prices and gasoline at the pump, which is not good politically. And Donald Trump has every reason to be concerned about his declining popularity. But in addition to that, I think the last round of tit-for-tat attacks by the U.S. and the reprisal by Iran were instructive. Iran has adopted the Israeli standard of disproportionate responses to attacks on it. So if you attack Iran and do X amount of damage, they will try to do 5 to 10x damage back at you. And they did that, apparently, with their attacks on numerous American bases in the region in response to our latest provocation of them. So it's impossible now to continue to believe that there is any solution other than a diplomatic one. Now, we're not in a solution. One of the things that is most confusing to people and really does not help us understand what is happening is incorrect vocabulary. We have not had a ceasefire. We have had an agreed de-escalation and of the fighting. There is not a peace deal. There is an understanding to further de-escalate the fighting and conduct a diplomatic dialogue and negotiation, which, by the way, is very unpromising, because it appears that, as usual, our president is making stuff up about what the other side he has agreed to, in his opinion. The Iranians have been very firm about what they need to do a permanent peace agreement, and they don't want a temporary deal. A deal, by the way, I mean, the very word itself is a transactional word. That is not what is required to produce peace in West Asia, the Middle East. Finally, I would say it's become perfectly obvious that Israel not only is not an ally, but it is a saboteur. It is determined to wreck any understanding with Iran, because having inveigled us into this war, it wants the war to go on until Iran is destroyed. It can't do that. It subcontracted that task to us, and we have not delivered. So we're seeing angry dialogue, angry exchanges between Prime Minister Netanyahu, his extremist cabinet, and Donald Trump, with the Israelis saying openly that they do not feel bound by what has been agreed. They have no intention of withdrawing from Lebanon as required. And they reserve the right to strike Iran on their own, or whatever that accomplishes.
The headline of today's Washington Post reads, "Israelis denounce Trump's peace deal with Iran." Subtitle, "Netanyahu's critics, supporters label it a," in quotes, "catastrophe," closed quote. We'll get to the Israelis and Netanyahu in a minute. I want to play a clip of the vice president last night on Fox News stating disingenuously that the Iranians are not getting any American money. It's not American money they seek. All they want to do is take their own money out of their own bank accounts, but the United States has sanctioned and threatened the banks. But here's the vice president.
The agreement says they are not getting a single dime of American money. That's just not what this is. What the agreement does say, Sean, is, again, if the Iranians behave, and if there are sanctions relief, and if the Iranians are integrated into the world economy, we would invite other countries, not us, but other countries, to invest in their country. That's fine, but only if they comply with the terms of the agreement.
Well, yes, you can tell. This is the money in question is money that we basically stole from them in reprisal for the Iranian Revolution, and the sanctions involved are illegal under international law. They're unilateral U.S. sanctions imposed without the sanction of the Security Council, not recognized by at least China and Russia as legal. Of course, we have a G7 meeting going on in Evian, right across the border from Switzerland and France, near Geneva. And the main theme of this, as usual, is the Europeans trying to cope with the vagaries of Donald Trump's diplomacy, or lack of it. They have two objectives. One is to cause the president of the United States to re-embrace Volodymyr Zelensky on the fallacious premise that he's about to win the war in Ukraine. And second, to reimpose the Israeli agenda on Donald Trump so that he does no agreement with Iran that doesn't strip Iran of its missiles and remove its relationships with elements of the resistance to Israeli expansionism in West Asia. This is at best wishful thinking, or at worst a response to a very effective diplomatic effort by Israel to enlist America's allies in Europe in the sabotage of Donald Trump's understanding with the Iranians about how to go forward with negotiations.
Ambassador, why is it that we haven't seen this agreement in writing? The Iranians say it means one thing, the Americans say it means another. Unless there's an issue with translation, it should be published so that people can analyze it for themselves.
It's being delayed to spin it. It's sort of thing that you just heard from J.D. Vance. Donald Trump's claims that Iran will not control the Strait of Hormuz. J.D. Vance, in another context, claiming that CENTCOM was supervising a major exodus of tankers from the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz, when that is not the case. Iran has made its peace with the owners of those tankers who are paying fees to move them through the Strait of Hormuz. So basically, the agreement is being held in abeyance so that it can be spun. And the impact of what probably, from a strategic point of view, is the greatest defeat of the United States since the Vietnam War can be somehow softened for the American public.
What did the United States of America gain from 100 days of war against Iran?
Very hard to see that we gained anything at all. We certainly increased inflation in the United States. We have created a political mousetrap for the Trump administration in the forthcoming rise in gasoline prices and so forth. We lost control of the Strait of Hormuz. It was previously subject to Anglo-American imposed law of the sea rules, which made it a freely navigable passage for everyone. It's now being controlled by Iran, which will charge fees for the services it provides, another word for tolls, I guess. We did not engineer a regime change except in the sense of eliminating an entire echelon of Iranian leaders who opposed the development of a nuclear weapon and replacing them with people who favor it. We did not save Israel from retaliation by Iran. We depleted our stocks of weaponry and our interception capabilities for missiles so that we really now are not in a position to handle contingencies elsewhere, whether in the Taiwan Strait or in some sort of resumption of aid to Ukraine against Russia. We devalued our word on numerous occasions. We used negotiations as cover for attacks earlier. We reach agreements at the negotiating table through the mediation of Pakistan and Qatar, and then we repudiate them. Nobody trusts us now. We didn't gain anything. We lost a great deal in this war, not to mention the fact that it's probably going to cost $1 trillion, all of it borrowed and paid for by your and my grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Here's Senator Mark Warner, who's the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, essentially agreeing with everything you just said, Ambassador. Chris, cut number 3.
Can anyone make the case that we or our allies are in better spot than before this war? The regime's leadership is more radical than ever. Mm-hmm. The ability for us to get the enriched uranium out, I believe, will require troops on the ground, which I don't think America wants to do. The idea that we have a 60-day additional negotiation, where does that lead? We'll be here 60 days, still won't have access to it. Clearly, after Hegseth had said, we've destroyed all their capabilities, they still have plenty of missiles and thousands of drones. And the idea that the Strait is suddenly going to be magically reopened, look at the gas prices. They went from $2.80 to $4.20. And I believe they'll go up more because the overall world reserves have all come down. How is that better for America or better for our allies?
This is really our friend and colleague, Colonel Douglas Macgregor, has called this the worst foreign policy decision of the modern era by an American president to fight Benjamin Netanyahu's war for him. I'm going to guess that you are close in agreement.
I am in agreement. I would simply say that I find it very difficult to think of any decision in the 250 years of American independence that is worse than this one.
When asked about U.S. stockpiles, this is a very serious issue now, about stockpiles wasted on Ukraine by Biden and Iran by Trump. Here's Secretary Hegseth's typical combative, snarky response. Chris, cut number 4.
Ukraine's President Zelensky was on this program a few weeks ago. He made a plea not just for more interceptors, but for the ability to produce them, for friendly governments to be able to produce patriots. Some Republican lawmakers support this idea. Do you?
Nobody makes better and more munitions than the United States of America, and we are open to co-production wherever we can. And because of this administration, we're supercharging our arsenal of freedom, building more, building faster, opening up the Pentagon, ripping through the Pentagon bureaucracy to force industry to move faster. So
but there
our stockpiles
there is
are
a crisis
strong,
with
and they will
those
only get
stockpiles
stronger
right
in the future.
There is a crisis with those stockpiles right now in private industry.
That is a manufactured story that the media wants to peddle. And ultimately, our stockpiles are great, and they'll only get stronger because of the way.
Stockpiles are great and they'll only get stronger. No rational observer agrees with that. In fact, it is inconceivable that that could be the case.
Absolutely. You can't expend thousands of Tomahawk missiles, hundreds of Patriots, dozens of THAAD interceptors, drop a huge number of glide bombs, and lose your main radars in the region while you're doing it, lose aircraft to counterfire from Iran, and claim that everything's hunky-dory. And that's essentially what he's doing. And this is just an example of what I think is a real important development in warfare. And that is, now that the battlefield is almost completely transparent as a result of satellites, overflight, drone observation, and you cannot therefore use deception on the battlefield as an instrument of advance. Deception is essential to warfare, always has been. With no deception on the battlefield, the deception has moved to the information sphere. And our government routinely lies, denies, fails to accept reality, misportrays things as a means of deceiving whom? The American public, for morale purposes, the enemy perhaps, for reasons of intimidation, But basically, deception is now the norm in information warfare on a level that we've never seen before. And you just saw a great example of that in the Hegseth denial that realities that everyone knows exist.
Ambassador, what kind of a domestic predicament has Benjamin Netanyahu put himself into?
Well, I think he's in a real vice because not only is he now blamed by many Israelis for his coddling of Hamas, his efforts to control Hamas with bribes paid by the government of Qatar, and his lack of preparedness, apparently, for the October 7 breakout from the concentration camp of Gaza by Hamas and other Palestinian prisoners there. And not only is he blamed for that, but he's now blamed for losing the support of the United States and fighting and basically watching the United States do a deal on a war which he instigated and which he now feels the United States has betrayed him. There's a fundamental issue here, and that is that Israel's I think his defense minister, Israel Katz, said that Israel would not allow Iran and the United States to, quote, change the equation, unquote, in West Asia. But the equation has changed. For many years, Israel could bomb, strafe, murder, massacre, and commit genocide with no real pushback from its neighbors. They snarled, they growled, they spoke out, but they did nothing concrete. Now they're firing back. Israel finally pushed Iran into taking the risk of firing at it and at the United States, which is complicit in Israel's misbehavior. And from now on, whether there's a peace or not, that is going to be the case in West Asia. Anytime Israel does something to either Iran or one of the resistance movements that Iran supports, Iran is going to retaliate, not simply proportionally, but disproportionately, severely enough to punish Israel for its misbehavior. That is something entirely new. It is a change in the equation, and it was brought about by the United States collusion with Israel against Iran. It didn't have to happen, but it has. So Netanyahu, who has always been regarded as a sleazebag by many in Israel, is now regarded as someone who has blighted the future of the country, called into question its very existence. How can Israel survive under constant threat of missile attack? It cannot intercept those missiles despite its claims to the contrary, as Israelis have learned. Who will want to live in Israel when every few moments you may have to dive into a bomb shelter underground and stay there until the klaxons cease to scream at you? This is a disaster that Netanyahu bears a great deal of resemblance for it. Responsibility for it, and he should indeed be held accountable by Israelis, and they are beginning to do that.
Here he is on Sunday trying to defend himself, but essentially arguing Israel isn't going anywhere. Chris, cut number 11.
We established deep security zones around the state of Israel. We did this in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria. There, by the way, we eliminated all of Assad's army's weapons, which was a central link in the axis of evil. And I want to make it clear, we will remain in the security zones for as long as necessary to protect our country. Because after October 7th, I established a simple principle. Israel will not allow terrorist organizations to park on our borders or to dig terror tunnels into our territory.
He
feels the heat, Ambassador.
Yes, he does. And this is, in effect, a reinforcement of a failed policy. For 78 years, Israel has had no proposal for peaceful coexistence with any of its neighbors. It has brutalized the indigenous Palestinian population in its territory and in the occupied territories. And it has bombed, strafed, and murdered people over its borders. And it thinks that that will give it security. But what it does is create enemies who are implacable. It is not a path to security for Israel. It is a path to insecurity. But it's the only one that Netanyahu appears to know. He's not prepared to discuss peace with either the Palestinians or Israel's neighbors, still less Iran. And he thereby puts the state of Israel in grave jeopardy.
Ambassador, thank you very much, my dear friend. Very unpleasant topics to discuss, but you cut right through them so nicely. All the best. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Coming up later today, a full day for you at 9 o'clock this morning. If you're watching us live in 36 minutes, Colonel Bill Astori at 2 this afternoon, Matthew Ho at 3 this afternoon, Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski at 4 this afternoon. God only knows where he is. Pepe Escobar, Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.